All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are getting into the absolutely wild story of Chris Bledsoe. His life was completely turned upside down by an encounter that, honestly, is almost impossible to explain. It all kicked off with a sound in the middle of the night, an event that would drag a man from his absolute lowest point into a mystery so profound it would end up grabbing the attention of some of the most powerful organizations on the planet. So let's set the scene. The year is 2007. Chris Bledsoe, a family man, a very religious guy for North Carolina, he is in a bad, bad way. I mean, we are talking rock bottom. His business was failing. He was facing a terminal diagnosis of Crohn's disease. He was just done. He drives out to the Cape Fear River. And this wasn't just a fishing trip, you know? He was out there making one last, desperate prayer for help. Or maybe for it all to just be over. But Chris Bledsoe didn't find the kind of peace he was looking for at the river that night. Oh no. What found him was something else entirely. Something that would stretch on for 4 hours and completely rewrite his future. And we're not talking about some distant blinking lights here. Bledsoe described two massive orbs just hovering over the trees a few hundred yards out, with actual flames licking off of them. Can you imagine seeing that? It must have been absolutely terrifying. So naturally, he's about to run for his life, right? But just then, this whole thing gets intensely personal. A third orb just materializes right above his head and starts coming down fast. This wasn't something he was just watching anymore. This thing was interacting directly with him. And this is the moment where things go from just strange to completely reality bending. He felt this connection, a telepathic one. There was no hiding. He said it was like he knew what a deer felt like when it was being hunted. He was totally exposed, totally under the control of whatever this intelligence was. After that intense, terrifying moment of connection, everything just went dark. The next thing he remembers, 4 hours have just vanished, gone. A huge chunk of time, completely wiped from his memory. I mean, that's a classic sign in these kinds of encounters, right? And the little bits he could remember were just fragmented and so bizarre. He had this fleeting image in his head of two small, dark figures lit up by this weird glow, and their piercing red eyes. So Chris finally makes it home. He's shaken, he's confused, and you'd think the weirdest part of the night is over, right? Nope. He's about to find out that the encounter left its mark on him in the most unbelievable way you can imagine. And here is the absolute kicker. His doctors confirmed it. The terminal Crohn's disease that had been destroying his life for years was just gone. A medically impossible recovery that literally happened overnight. But, this wasn't some fairy tale ending. This miracle, it was a double-edged sword. On one hand, he got his life back. On the other, talking about what happened brought nothing but ridicule, suspicion, and official investigations that nearly tore his entire family apart. And for the next 5 years, his life became a living nightmare. He calls this period the darkness. And the more Chris tried to tell people his incredible story, the worse things got for him and his family. I mean, just look at how this all played out. First, his community turns its back on him. Then, it gets worse. Officials at his kids' school start pulling them out of class for questioning. Then it escalates to a full-blown social services investigation that threatened to take his children away. Just a brutal 5-year-long ordeal. And then, after 5 straight years of being treated like a total outcast, the story takes a wild turn. The kinds of people who make you nervous start showing up at his house. But they weren't there to cause trouble. They were there to listen. And I mean, look at this list. We're not talking about some local UFO group. We're talking the CIA, NASA, the Vatican for crying out loud, and Harvard University. All of a sudden, Chris Bledsoe goes from being the local crazy guy to a person of intense, high-level interest. This was the big turning point. Can you even imagine the relief? A freaking NASA scientist sits down with your parents and tells them, hey, you need to listen to your son. He's not making this up. That one moment just changed the entire narrative for him and his family. And the validation went even deeper than that. He started working with real experts, people who had studied under the legendary Dr. John Mack from Harvard, the guy who took abduction experiences seriously when pretty much no one else in academia would. They started helping him try to piece together what happened in those 4 missing hours. So after all of their studies, what did these officials from the CIA and NASA conclude? Well, they gave him this title, a human receiver. Now think about that for a second. They didn't see him as just a witness who saw something weird in the sky. They came to believe he was some kind of antenna, a potential link for communication with whatever he met that night. And that really leaves us with the biggest question of all, doesn't it? Chris Bledsoe's story forces us to look beyond just lights in the sky and consider something much more profound. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, this phenomenon is selective, that it chooses who it interacts with. What if the real mystery isn't just what's out there, but why it chose to connect with a desperate man on the banks of a river? What if the messenger is the whole point?